Good evening, everybody. So I am here today to talk about books and empathy. So we'll talk about empathy one page at a time. And I'm waiting for Bijal, who is a bibliotherapist. So I'll be talking with her about empathy and books tonight. I think she's connecting now, so we'll get started.
Carlota, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Bijal?
I'm great. How's your Wednesday evening? I guess it's a bit late there in Spain, isn't it?
It is a bit late, but it's perfect time to talk about books before going to bed, isn't
Yeah.
it?
My favorite subject.
All right, so tell us a bit about you, Bijal, so everybody gets to know you a little better.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Bijal and I currently live in London, and I am a bibliotherapist and book curator, and I've been doing this for more than 3 years now. I previously used to work in investment banking, but in 2014 I completed a diploma in psychodynamic counseling and therapy. And I wrote a book called The Happiness Mindset, which is all about psychology and 12 personal strategies for fulfillment and living a more sort of authentic and happier life. So I really wanted to combine my passion for psychology, writing, literature, and essentially provide literature as a therapeutic medium. And as part of my training in counseling, I had to do therapy sessions myself. And what I realized during those sessions was that, I was really able to leverage off literature, poetry and books. There's a week between therapy sessions normally, in conventional therapy. And during that time, it can feel quite lonely and quite, you want to be able to connect to, you want to be able to connect to people, you want to be able to connect to some sort of, whether it's a fictional protagonist or not, to, identify with what they're going through, and perhaps it's something that you're going through as well. And, that's sort of where the healing happens. And I used literature a lot in my own personal therapy, and I found it totally life-changing. And so I wanted to bring this concept, although it's been around for centuries, I really wanted to bring it to the mainstream audience. And so I started off by curating personalized book prescriptions for people, i.e., which were essentially reading lists for different needs or interests, a lot of mental health issues. And the more and more I started doing that, the more requests I got from people for some more insight into bibliotherapy and perhaps some training for self-bibliotherapy, or to add it to their existing coaching or therapy practice, or if they're a teacher or social worker, to bring it to their work. So basically, I launched a bibliotherapy course as well, which provides greater guidance.
I did actually. I actually joined your course. It was a
Yes, you
great
did.
insight. Yeah, great insight to know more about how to use books to help yourself, because it's something that you
Yeah,
can do. You can do lying at the beach, or just doing it before bed, and the only thing that you need is some pages and a will to read and understand more about what's going on in the story, what's going on in the book.
yeah, that's absolutely right. And the premise of bibliotherapy is empathy. So it's the ability to identify with the character and then connect on that basis. So, your work is equally important in sort of bringing that practice to life, and being able to sort of have that connection with the text or with the character. And, that in turn leads us to connect with our emotions, so that catharsis happens. And also, it brings insight and coping strategies and other ways of dealing with the problem at hand. So I'd love to hear more about, the empathy side. And obviously you've been an empathy coach for a very long time. So I'd love to just, find out a bit more about that, and then sort of how we could, bring the two together.
Sure. So, well, for those who don't know me, so I'm Meritxell, and I'm an empathy coach. I wrote a book called The Art of Empathy, El Arte de la Empatía. It's available in Spanish right now, and it was sort of my journey through how empathy helped me to be uh, a good friend to myself, because first of all it starts with self-empathy, how we talk to ourselves, these mean boys that we sometimes have that drives us crazy and sort of stop us from doing those things that we want to do because we are critical with ourselves. And I've always been a bookworm, really. I always remember when I was a kid, kids were playing and I had a book in my hand. I was sort of the weird one in the crowd, but I feel that books are such a great way to live other people's lives. And from an empathy
Absolutely.
pers yeah, from an empathy perspective, this is what it is that you got to do, right? I mean, empathy in the end is to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And
Yeah,
sometimes, in the everyday life, it's either difficult, sometimes we're not in the mood to listen. Uh, Sometimes we're so much worried about what we're going to say next that when we want to pay attention, our monkey mind jumps from one thing to another. But when we read, we get consumed by the story, we get consumed with what we're reading, and we enter in such a different world. Even our waves sort of get into a meditative state. And
absolutely.
this allows us to connect with that person that we are reading about, with that story. And we not only see in our imagination, we see the scene, we see that we feel the feelings. We are
Yeah,
in the character's head. We know what they're going through. So I
yeah.
feel
We're
that,
vicariously living. We're vicariously living, living their
yeah,
story. Yeah,
for real.
yeah,
And it's funny because I don't think I've heard about bibliotherapy not long ago, and I bumped into your work, and I thought, oh wow, this is so interesting, because in the end, what we are doing is we're choosing books that we think it's just stories to sort of get our mind away from our real lives. But truly, we are bringing
100%.
part of that into our real lives without
Yeah,
realizing.
we are. Yeah, we are. And, it's sometimes talking about other people's stories makes it easier to talk about our own, in terms of what we're going through, because it's giving us the language, it's giving us the voice, it's giving us representation, it's making us feel validated. So I think that is the power of the story, and that is the power of books and fiction, even more so than nonfiction sometimes. Although I think they both have their strengths, and people have preferences for different genres. So they're both equally important. But it is that sort of escapism into another world, but then it's bringing it back to ourselves, and that connections with our own emotions, which brings back that cathartic healing. Um, but that's
Yeah.
just the beginning.
No, definitely. But
Obviously.
it's funny because I think that I mean, of course, there's fiction and nonfiction, but for example, for fiction, from an empathy perspective, you are imagining what's going on in
Yeah,
there. So your
yeah,
right side of the brain gets activated. You are seeing the story. You are right there with the person that you're reading
you are.
about. And
Yeah,
so this is also sort of a metaphor sometimes, because each of us interpret stories in a different way, and we always bring it to our own experiences and what we feel, and we feel identified. Sometimes we feel horrified by whatever we are reading, and that's
yeah,
okay too, because I feel that
yeah,
it's so important to read things that you like, and it's also important to read things that repel you in a way, because there's also
yeah.
something there for you. If it repels you, there's something to work on as well.
That's absolutely right. It's pushing all the right buttons. If it's pushing a button, there's something there that you need to explore. So, I mean, there'll be things like horror. Horror can actually be quite healing in some ways, because it brings out the things that you might have been avoiding, the fear, the anxiety. Um, so yeah, you're absolutely right. Different things can have different effects on us, and it's great to explore. And one of the things that I recommend my clients do is journaling. So literary journaling, I call it, but essentially it is you know, reading the book, but then journaling your reflections, like what it's brought up for you, what emotions it's brought up for you, and why do you think that made you feel that way? Because sometimes you might read something and it might give you a very sort of strange feeling or just a strange idea, and you're wondering why it's resonated with you so much. And that is the big clue. There's something in there that you need to explore. And you can do that as part of your own self-bibliotherapy, or you can, take it to your coach or your therapist or somebody to sort of maybe help guide you further. So I would highly recommend journaling when you're reading. That's actually part of part of when I give bibliotherapy sessions, it's part of the work that we do. But also sometimes writing a letter to a character, or writing a letter to the author. There is a lot of healing in there, in unstructured writing as well. I know reading is all about reading words, but there's a lot of healing in writing down our feelings. And that's why I think journaling and any sort of unstructured creative writing is really important.
Yeah, and now that you say that, I resonate with that a lot. I'm a writer. That's what I love to do. So if I'm not reading a book, I'm writing one. So it's really one or the other. And for me, writing, it's also processing everything that we have seen or that we have read. Diary is where to sort of tell yourself how your day it was. You are telling yourself the story that you know in your head, but the moment that you put it into words, it sort of comes alive. So I think that for reading, this is important, because sometimes we read something and we don't realize what it's done to us. It's because we just think, it was a story. I'm reading a good book. But this feeling when you're reading a book that you really like, and you are by the end of the book and you feel that emptiness. It's such a feeling.
Sadness is saying goodbye to this book, to the characters, or
because in a way it's like you've been removed from their lives forever. And it gives you such an emptiness feeling, and this is because that book ticked something inside you.
Well, you felt a connection, right? You really connected, and it's no longer there to fill that I guess maybe that emptiness you were feeling beforehand. So
and the same thing for for things that maybe we read, and I always give the 100 pages rule kind of thing, where I read 100 pages, and if I can't do it anymore, then I'll sort of leave it aside. But I always give 100 pages, because sometimes it happens that maybe on the first 20 you are not hooked, you are not getting in there. And it could be because, it's not written the way that you want to read, or it's because maybe you're not in the mood. And so what you're trying to do is get into the story, and it takes some time. But it's true that I don't think books don't create indifference. You either love them, you either hate them. It's either a struggle, or it's just a walk in the park. And that says a lot about what you need. And I feel, I believe in magic above all, and I feel that books find you. I don't know if that
Absolutely. It's such a journey of self-discovery. Absolutely.
It has happened to me that sometimes, I go to a bookstore and I see a book and I don't buy it, and then I go to another one and it's the same book. And it's like the book is following me everywhere I go. It's like stalking me. So I have a feeling that, okay, there's something here. I gotta read it, apparently. So
sign.
It's like love at first sight sometimes.
It is. It really is. And have you found some books have been more sort of empathetic? Like, have you found that you've really been able to empathize with some books more than others, or has books that have really hit the sweet spot for you? What's been really special about them?
I would say that if the book is written in a way that you are able to not only think like the character, but you're also able to feel like the character. So there's some
Yeah.
sort of humanization of that character and is well made. I think that instantly gets you into the story. It gets into the
Yeah.
story because you want to know more about that person if it's
Yeah.
interesting enough. Sometimes it's true. I mean, there are different types of books and different types of styles, and everybody has their preference, of course. But I would say that a book that is well written, you might like it or not, but I think that you can also appreciate it. And this is something that as a writer I've learned to do, because when you read a book, you might not like the book, you know, you might not like the story, the same way that you're
Yeah.
watching TV and you don't like that program, right? But
Yeah.
you are able to sort of tell if there's a message for you, even though you didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it that you can use from there? Um,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's interesting to do that exercise, like why I didn't like it. Why did this somehow
Yeah.
create
That's
this
telling you
repulsive
something about yourself.
feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're all reading through our own lenses, right? We're all sort of filtering, the literature out based on our own lens. So there is certainly something that's striking a chord with you that's either scary or too traumatic to explore. And again, therein lies the clue, of something that you need to explore further. But I think for me, books like I think books that have really hit home have been really, really sad books. But I think it's because I just like Khaled Hosni's Thousand Splendid Suns and A Kite Runner and The Great Gatsby and even The Second Sex, Simone de Beauvoir's book. I think it's because I see myself in so many of those different stories. Either whether it's being a woman or whether it's being in a relationship that didn't work out, or if it's a loss of young life, or in terms of if it's a transition that you're going through or a coming of age book. We've all been through those different stages of life, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's that resonance and the ability of the book to hook you onto certain emotions. I think those are the books that do really well in the publishing sector and in general, especially now because we live in a culture of being so connected to ourselves. We really are living in that age where self-care, personal development, all of these things are pretty high on everyone's agenda. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if you go to social media, you'll see those are the things that are hitting the high notes, and everybody's kind of following those quotes or those people. So I think now those are the books that are really sort of thriving.
And one thing that came to mind while you were speaking about, the books that you sort of need at certain times, or that you read and that you resonate with. I think that there are special books at every age in a way. Like, I remember the books that I was reading and that I loved when I was 15 and when I was 20 and when I was 25, because I feel that there are these certain books that they find you at the right time. And
Yes.
I think that they find you at the right time because you need that so much. Then when you read
Yeah.
it's you integrate that book in you in a
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
because
That's right.
and it's something that sometimes I don't think that we realize that. But when you talk about anybody, really, it doesn't really matter if you read a lot or you don't read much, but everybody has those books that changed
That's
something.
right. I think Little Women comes to mind as a young girl or as a teenager, and even now. I mean, I think that book has just so many different meanings at so many different stages of our lives, right? Whether it's a young girl who's wanting to become this flourishing writer, or whether it's one of the other sisters who wants to just get married, or there's just, yeah, there's so much. Yeah, that's one of the evergreen books that I would say falls into the category that you were describing.
You know, before we were here to talk, I started thinking about, what are those books that I really remember. And it was funny because I remember this book that I read a long time ago, and I just bought it again, because I was like, I need to read it again. It was The Time Traveler's Wife. I don't know if you
Oh
know
yeah,
that one. Oh my
yeah,
God, I love
yeah.
this one. I
It's a
loved it.
brilliant book.
It was so sweet. I mean, for those who haven't read it, and I hope I don't spoil the whole thing, but basically it's a guy who time travels, and he's
Yeah.
having a relationship with this girl that he sort of meets with her at different times, when
Wow.
she's little and when she grows up. But
So
there's a
beautiful.
there's such a beauty in how it's made, because I am not that kind of person that likes super science fiction books, because I want to be able to sort of touch things with reality. And I'm sure that there might be other people who they love these kind of books, but for me, that was quite of a surprise, because at the beginning I was like, oh, this guy is time traveling, not sure about this, but it was so real. It was so real. Like the
Yeah.
feelings you could get into that
Yeah.
situation. And although obviously I don't know anybody who time travels yet. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
maybe that happens at some point, but you can get into the feeling of of they meeting in different times, and him, having to travel back to some other time, so they lose contact for a bit, and you get there, you are right there with them. So I think that's the beauty of those books, that they get you into whatever story is it that they are telling, that you are right there with the characters and with the story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the books where you can fit yourselves in the character's shoes are the books that really steal the show. You know, there's a book that only recently came out, I think 2 years ago, Laurie Gottlieb's book, Maybe You Should Talk to Somebody. And it's kind of
Mm.
like semi-fiction, auto-fiction. It's a therapist's life, and it's a story about her therapy, but also a story in parallel about the clients that she sees. Um, and it's just amazing because she just talks about, I think what she touches on is all the different sort of human issues that people face, and the difficulties and struggles. And it's like you're sitting in on a therapy session and you're eavesdropping. And I think it's paralyzed in its vulnerability. And I think, you feel that actually, my life might not be as so bad, or actually I could learn from that, or that's pretty interesting. And she kind of litters it with lots of different psychotherapy quotes and insights. So it's a really brilliant book, and it's actually quite funny, very light-hearted as well. Um, so I think that's going to be around for a while as well. I think she's done a great job with it. I think they're going to turn it into a HBO series or something by Ava Longoria or someone. But yeah,
No,
it's again.
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of nonfiction. I read fiction, but I read a lot of nonfiction for work, as research for a lot of things.
Yeah,
And
of course, it's
one of the
empathy.
things,
Yeah.
yeah, empathy, and now I'm getting into creativity and creative process. And I recently read Big Magic from Elizabeth Gilbert.
Oh, yes. That's
Uh,
a
I
wonderful book on creativity. Yeah.
absolutely loved it. She talks about
She's such a good
different.
writer. I
Oh,
mean,
she's
she's done so
great.
many phenomenal books, like each one so different but so special. Like it's just, yeah, she's a brilliant writer.
Yeah, she got
Yeah.
famous by the Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
It's actually an autobiography. This is something that happened to her, and
Yeah.
but Big
But
Magic is
it's
a bit
interesting
different.
because so many people's lives could go in the way that she describes it, right? And I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that you can see yourself there, and maybe
Yeah.
the story is not exactly what you've lived, but there are pieces of it. And
Yeah.
what I loved about Big Magic is her theory about ideas, and how they
Yeah.
sort of follow you, and they go
Yeah.
to humans that are ready to hear those ideas. And she
Yeah.
has a way to tell the story that it's really
Yeah.
engaging, and
She
everybody
has
sort
such a
of.
wonderful way with words. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful, because it doesn't matter if you are creative or not. We all have ideas, and we all have that feeling of the bulb, you know
Yeah,
on your
yeah,
head when something comes
yeah,
up, and she puts words into that. So um
yeah. And she's
um
very persuasive. I think you leave it feeling, right, I'm going to pursue something really creative now, and I'm
yeah,
going to pursue my creative aspirations. Yeah,
exactly. And that is a non-fiction book, but I
yeah,
think that you can also imagine, because maybe with fiction you're imagining the story that they tell you. I feel that with non-fiction you are imagining your own story with whatever they
yeah,
tell you about, which is such
yeah.
it's a different process. But
It is. Yeah,
I feel it's also good because in the end, of course, there's theory or there's content on their books that you can learn things from them, from an intellectual point of view where you understand the topic that they're writing about and you can learn from that. But aside from that, I feel that you are creating your own fiction story from the nonfiction book that you're reading, because in the end,
yeah.
you're taking the pieces
Well,
and the part.
you've just described the genre autofiction. Because there is, there is that sort of based on true events, but not quite. And I think a lot of memoirs and even some biographies sometimes sit in that space because, uh, you know, you're iterating, right? You're iterating from a narrative that you've read to one that kind of fits your story or your imagination or better.
So, tell us more about, for example, book prescriptions, because this is something that I didn't heard before, and when I saw it on your page, I was like, oh, I need to try all that. So I sent you my best friend who has read
Yes, you
almost
did.
everything in the world, um,
Yeah.
and I was like, if you can do it for her, we're good.
So you were testing me.
And she was very surprised, like gladly surprised. And I remember some of her feedback that she mentioned. You had a category there. I think it was maternity and poetry. And she
Yeah.
was like, I first of all, I love the title. She was like, she got me there. Poetry and maternity together. Let's do this. Um,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because I feel that sometimes we don't know exactly what we need. Um,
No.
and we
No, we
don't
don't.
have we
Yeah.
don't have the resources, because I want to read about whatever, creativity, motherhood, whatever it is, right? And so what and we all
Yeah.
have Google,
You know your
but
authors.
sometimes Google doesn't know us that well.
No, no, exactly. And sometimes I mean, I think even with algorithms, they don't always capture the human elements, the other themes that might be going on, as alongside, um, alongside various other issues that you might have. So you could be. I think she also wanted some books on cities. So it's very much I want some
Yes.
books on cities, but I want some poetry and I want some stuff on motherhood, and so it's very kind of. It was nice to really bring very different, unique books to her. Some which are old, some which might not be as well known. Um, but that's the nice thing, right? An algorithm would probably just give you the bestseller. But sometimes there's these beautiful unknown books by indie authors that really deserve recognition or a read. And that's where my expertise comes in, but also my time. It's that I spend a lot of time researching books sometimes just to in the hope that it will hit the sweet spot for my clients. So the book prescriptions are very much, you get a 10-page report, 7 to 10 book recommendations that are based on your preferences, your interests. It could be for something therapeutic. It could be for something of just that you're personally interested in, or it could be a combination of both. Um, and again, it's very tailored to your reading preferences, how much time you have to read. Do you prefer Kindle, audio, paperback? So it's really takes into account all of these various things just so that we can get you something that you are definitely likely to read and finish, because
Yeah.
some people have Kindle book covers and some people have paperbacks, and sometimes you don't always have, a
Eh,
book on one or the other. So there's a lot of, time spent researching to make sure it's like a good fit.
And I feel it's like having a book buddy. Like I have a lot of friends that are bookworms like me. Um, I'm happy for that. And sometimes I'm like, I'm looking for something like this, and they're like, and they go to their shelf, and they're like, this is what you need, and this is kind of the book prescription, but with with a lot more resources, because you've read a lot of different things, and you're
Yeah,
able to put
and even if I
together.
haven't read it, it's a lot of research and opinions and what industry news and what the publishing industry is saying. So
You know what's out
it's a
there,
lot of
so
research. It's a lot of,
yeah.
yeah, in the database and what's feedback from clients, what's worked, what's not. Um, but yeah, it's personally very fulfilling, I guess. And I have the database now, so you know.
That's good. That's good. Um,
But we should
so
do an empathy book club.
we should totally do that. We should totally do that, because it's so much
We're all the
needed,
empathy experts, you know.
Yeah. Now, sometimes people ask me, but what's this empathy thing about? Because everybody talks about empathy, but what it is really. And we all know that it's about placing ourselves into somebody else's shoes. But when you're with a friend, and they tell you about something that they're worried about, they tell you about something that they have an obstacle, or they're stuck, and sometimes we have this impulse to want to fix things. We want
Yeah,
to okay, you're hurt, I'll give you a band-aid, right? So it's kind of we are going around with a pack of band-aids, trying to fix people. And sometimes people just need to be in that space where things hurt, or where things are sad, or where they are happy, and they want to share their happiness with you. And I think that empathy holds the space for whatever feeling is there, because you are not trying to
absolutely.
change anything in the other person. You are just
Yeah,
trying to be there with that
yeah,
person. and
yeah,
and and this is something so important, and I think that books can help you get there.
absolutely. Yep.
uh, and especially, I would say, especially those that make you feel uncomfortable. uh, because in the end, reading things that it's so easy for you to get into the character's shoes, sure, it's an empathy exercise, but you are not making muscle here. It's like going to the gym and just moving the 5 pound the 5 pound weight. You're not gonna get a muscle like this with a 5 pound weight. You're gonna need to
Yeah, absolutely.
increase
Yeah,
the weight.
yeah,
So
yeah,
for empathy, it's the same thing. It's like I call it the empathy gym. You need to go to the gym, because it's a muscle. And I feel that with reading and with books, it's the same thing. Go outside your comfort zone. You
yes.
always read
Those are the
fiction.
opportunities for growth. Absolutely. Yeah,
Get
yeah,
into nonfiction, or if you always read horror stories, go for a love story or a sad story,
yeah.
because
Yep, yep. There's something in there for you.
yeah, because you need that variety as well. Because I feel that
Yeah,
sometimes we're so stuck on what we know, what it's comfortable, in our comfort zone, in our reading comfort
yeah,
zone, that we feel this is all we like, and it's
yeah.
not true.
No, and sometimes you'll be pleasantly surprised and you'll just be like, so I mean, I went through a spell of reading nonfiction for a very long time and, I completely flipped because all of a sudden fiction was just bringing out so much more meaning for me, and all sorts of genres, be it science. I'm not a big science fiction reader, but there's a lot of, science fiction quite interesting, and actually it's transporting you to different emotions, different feelings that you might not come across in a love story, or just the feelings of courage and bravado and innovation, and so all of those things are interesting in themselves, and like I said, they're just all opportunities for personal growth.
Yeah, no, for real. And I've been reading nonfiction for a long while, but I'm starting, as you said, I'm starting to get the taste again for fiction. And I feel that my sort of nonfiction retreat helps me get back to fiction with a different lens. Uh, because I think that I'm going with an eagerness to learn from it, and not just
Yeah,
enjoy the story. I mean, I'm
yeah,
enjoying the story, but I'm looking for my meaning in there.
yes,
Wh- And
absolutely, yeah.
and I read a book that I absolutely loved last year, and it was Almond. I don't know if you know it. It's from a Korean author, Won Byung-son. I probably butchered the name, but it was really, really interesting for me because it was about this guy that he cannot express feelings,
Wow,
and
okay.
so
That's right
so
up your street as an empathy coach.
it's I mean it was such an experience because he can't really express anger or fear. He just doesn't feel it. And
Right, okay.
it's called almond because I think that it's the shape of the neuron or
So that
with the
sounds like
amygdala
somebody
or
with an antisocial personality disorder or something like that. I mean,
sort of. They don't talk
yeah,
about the pathology on itself. I'm not sure exactly
okay,
how it's
yeah,
called, but it's very interesting because it's the first book that I've read that he's the main character, and he's the one that speaks, right, throughout the
yeah,
book. And so
yeah,
he doesn't express feelings in the writing. There's no feelings. So
yeah.
imagine a story, a main character telling you about what's going on, no feelings on it.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit like The Convenience Store Woman, which is by a Japanese author.
I've
Um,
heard about
I
this
feel
one.
I feel like they're really hot on these sorts of protagonists that are almost antisocial, because I think they're challenging societal norms and they're asking us to view things from a different perspective, reframe our understanding of the world. And it's actually quite insightful. Well, I don't know about Almond, and I'll let you finish actually about Almond before I talk about Convenience Store Woman.
No,
But
but
it's interesting to have these books that are challenging
I
what you're
think
normally used to.
it's such a great exercise for empathy. So
Yeah,
trying to put yourself into the shoes of a guy who doesn't feel like you feel, it is
yeah,
difficult. It is
yeah,
difficult because you have such a different understanding of the world.
yeah,
It's so weird. It's like because how can you not feel happiness or not feel it's really difficult to put yourself in their shoes. But I also think that the beauty of this book is that it's easy for you to do it
yes,
because it's nothing like you've ever read before.
yeah, yeah,
You are reading it with no feelings already.
yeah. Yeah, and I think this is what if you were expected to empathize with a prisoner or somebody who has no remorse, or it's really it's challenging you, and it's really I guess increasing your awareness of the sorts of people in society. Yeah, which is
Yeah.
it's fascinating, and it's I think it's quite it's difficult for the writer to put forward a character like that, and I think they've done a wonderful job in doing that, um, and that's what's so refreshing
Yeah, and I
about
think
these books.
it helps you understand because obviously this is sort of an extreme experience, right? And it's an
Yeah,
extreme place, but we all have sometimes the feeling that somebody doesn't get us or that they don't express their feelings the way that we do or that they are not euphoric enough or that they are
yeah,
too euphoric, you know?
it's
So
just not on our level.
right? So it's just not our same level of feeling or enthusiasm on things. And
Yeah,
we all have difficulties sometimes understanding, but why are you not, just jumping of joy right now? And you're sort of,
yeah, yeah. Why
yeah.
don't you just get me? Yeah,
Exactly. But I think these extreme stories help us to see the details and be observant
yeah.
of those things when they happen. And they don't have to be in that uh, extreme spectrum, but it can be anywhere in between.
It can, absolutely, it can, and even gender roles, like living through different genders. Sometimes, you know, you can only do that through a book. I think it's quite hard to do that otherwise because you'll never know what somebody else is really thinking. But in a book, you're being presented with the full thought pattern, the stream of consciousness. And I think that's where you can vicariously live all these different lives, which I think is the power of literature.
Yeah, you were talking about different genders, and it came to mind a book that I read a long time ago, and I'm probably gonna butcher the name, but I think it was Carlota's Diary, I think, and
Okay.
it was really good because it was a teenager, and she had a love story with this guy, and you have both books, same story from the guy's perspective, same story
Oh,
from the
wow.
girl's
Okay.
perspective.
Yeah.
Mind blowing because you start with one, right? And you think that you got it because you know
Yeah.
what happened, right? But then
Yeah.
you read it from the other side, and it's
Yeah.
such a shock. I think it's
Yeah. The narrative. We're all thinking different things. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's from Flanagan and Carlota, and I think, but it was really good for me, that experience, because I was a young teenager, and I read the women's perspective, and I was like, oh, I don't really get that, and then I read the other side, and I was like, oh, this was what was going on his mind.
Yeah, I guess you kind of empathize with both of the characters, right? And then it's the sort of, how do I reconcile this now? You know? Um, yeah, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
and a lot of books are doing that now. I think what's really hot in the publishing industry at the moment is three-part narratives. So you have three protagonists.
Yeah.
Each giving their own narrative of what's going on. So Lisa Halliday's The Symmetry is very much like that. And it's fascinating to read, actually, because it's just, I think it just shows it shows the reality of the world. Like, we're all operating on these different frameworks and understandings of the world. And we have to live with all these different nuances and accommodate different viewpoints. And yeah, it's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah, no, I really like it. What do you think about, do we recommend some books so that we have read? And we've been talking about books all along,
We've been
but
talking recommendations.
yeah, but maybe we can talk about a couple of books that you would like to share, and I can talk about some other two.
Yeah, sure. No, so that sounds. What do you want to start, or shall I go?
You can go. You can go if you want.
Okay. So I'll probably pick some from my best list of 40 books from last year to read in 2021, which The Vanishing Half by Brooke Burnett was just a brilliant read about two sisters and who were kind of estranged. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but they're twin sisters, and a lot of it was, it explores a lot the themes of race, of family, of class. It's a brilliant book, definitely one that I would recommend if you're into literary fiction. If you are more sort of into nonfiction, I think the Instagram book, No Filter, is phenomenal by journalist Sarah Freer. It's the inside story of Instagram and how it began, and just the development of Instagram and all its features and its overnight acquisition by Facebook, and like it's a phenomenal read, and one that you might want to finish in one sitting. So I mean, those were brilliant. There's Cleanness by which was a really good book, and it's a great one if you're sort of looking for sort of more LGBTQI books, literature. Really brilliant read. Shuggy Baines, which won the Booker Award this year, was really another fantastic read. Probably a little bit sad, so if you're not into sort of sad fiction, I probably wouldn't recommend that as much. But I don't know if you have many feminists on here, but I think one of my favorite books of all time is Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex. This is actually a vintage edition that's a sort of edited version that's quite short. but it's quite it's more extracts, but it's again a book that I think everyone should read. Um, and some of my other sort of books that, especially for parents, is the ones that I always recommend is Why Love Matters by Sue Gerhat. A brilliant book, a brilliant book on empathy, because I think empathy and things like that are really founded in the first 2 years of a child's life. And I think this book makes a great case for that. So I'd really recommend that. The other one is Winnicott. He's a great sort of psychotherapist, but also like a psychoanalyst. But he's done some great books again on getting the foundations right for young children. And this one's more recent, but it's been a very popular book. The book that you wish your parents had read. I love that. It's great from a parenting perspective. And I'll probably just throw in one more classic, which I have, which has always been I've always been a big fan of it, The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald. Scott Fitzgerald, awesome, and the book Thief. These are all the ones I could sort of grab right now.
All right, so I'll start with my selection. So this is a thick one. It's like 700 pages long, but don't get scared. It's called The Man by Angelica Schropsdorf. I hope I didn't butcher her name. Really, really, really good. It's sort of autofiction. It's an autobiography
Oh, nice.
of her,
Okay.
and she talks about her life and through the relationships with men that she had. And
Okay.
it talks about from Second World War, and it was even censored, the book, when it got out originally, because she talks about
So
men
bound.
and
Yeah.
and a relationship with different men that she has along her life. But it's really good because you get a sense of not only how women lived in that time, and she was sort of a weird animal, but how, Second World War happened, and how the environment is, and how the Americans got to, Germany. Like there are different things that are historical. Really, really good.
Okay. Sounds great.
Another one that I truly recommend is Haru. I don't know if you've heard about this one, but if you haven't, you should totally read that one. It's really good. I mean, this one I have it in Catalan, but it's sort of a story about life, and it's explained through the perspective of this girl that she goes to a dojo, to a place to learn to do archery, and she's there for some years. But basically, she has these masters that teach her about observation and teach her about that it's not about the arch and the arrow, but that if you're trying to sort of put it in the right space, and you're so focused on the arrow, you're never gonna make it. That it's about the arm, it's about the training and how you do things and from where you do them. So
It's about the
it's
journey.
yeah, it's the journey, and so it's a beautiful story. And another one that I just read, that it's now a Netflix series, is I think it's in Valeria's shoes, but I'm not sure it's the exact translation from the Spanish version. And it's this girl that's a writer, and she struggles through her writing career, and she's doing a job that she hates, and she has a group of friends, sort of Sex and the City, 21st century kind of in a way, without the glamour, without New York, but with more of real life experiences. And I really like it because you have very different characters. You can put yourself in their shoes and enjoy this friendship that they have, and see the beauty in each of the characters that they are. They are all empowered women, and they all have their own spark that you can almost identify yourself with one of them, or maybe a bit of each. So I think that's cool. And The last one, I really recommend Almond. I think that's a must for empathy.
Yeah.
It's such an extreme story of someone who has no feelings, and I think that if we can understand someone who just perceives the world in a different perspective, and it's something that will be able to get closer to everybody, even if they have different opinions, even if they have different perspectives of the world, or they have other experiences they have lived in different places. It really doesn't matter because it gets us closer. In the end, we're all the same. So I hope that these books and reading gets us closer and more empathic, one page at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're never alone when we're with a book.
So, so what would be your tips to choose the right book? How do you know you are on the perfect one for you?
Right. Well, when I when I choose books for my clients, it's very much tailoring it to their sort of preferences, to the genres that they like, to the reading mediums, whether it's paperback, audio, Kindle. I do a lot of sort of, will they be able to resonate with this character? Does it kind of fit within their sort of ethnicity? Does it fit sort of, I mean, sometimes you want to read diverse books, so it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But it's very much making sure that it's aligned to what their requests are. In terms of choosing books for others, that's key. Is it, are they looking for something therapeutic? Are they looking for something that's just for personal interest? Are they looking, how much time do they have to read? Because if they don't have a lot of time, then maybe a short story or some poetry would be good, essays. If they have lots of time, then they might be willing to explore maybe a longer classic. Do they like classics? Do they like the white male narrative? No. Then maybe something that's a bit more sort of recent and more contemporary. That's not sort of stuck in the past. And context, right? So some people love historical novels, so they want to be able to travel back in time. Some people just want something that's, more recent with what's going on now. Something that's maybe like Conversations with Friends, Sally Rooney type. So again, it really depends on what you are looking for right now at this moment in time, at this point in your life. And then, of course, it's quite important to just make sure that this book's not going to be a waste of your time, and just, reading the reviews, reading the industry opinions and publishing opinions and what's being said, because you kind of want it to hit all the right notes, especially because we're also time constrained right now. We don't have a lot of time, so if we're going to spend some time reading, we want to make sure we're reading books that are relevant, and that's something that I'm actually really going to enjoy.
Yeah, and I think from an empathy perspective, I would say that I think we need to be empathic to ourselves, because we know how the message is gonna get easier to us. That there's nobody who's an expert on you more than you are. So
Yeah.
I think that this is something that you can use to choose your books, because
Yeah.
I myself, for example, if you give me a book that has descriptions of 3 pages about how the curtain is, I'm gonna get bored. I know myself, and it might be a fantastic book, but I'm gonna get lost in the curtains and I'm just not gonna see the spark. And so maybe that book is not for me, it's for somebody else, but I'm sure I can find a book that's similar to
Yeah.
that one, that has a way of expressing and a way of connecting with me that I really feel it. And
Yeah.
and sometimes bad reading experiences come from choosing the wrong book, but more about the wrong book, I think it's the wrong format, because it's not about
Yeah.
the story, but it's how it's told. It's that there are pieces of the message that don't get to you, and this
Yeah.
is sort of enraging in a way when you are 50 pages in and you're like, this is I'm just not getting into
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
I think that having sort of your own list of authors that you like, also
Yep.
going for surprises, because I think surprises are sometimes are good and sometimes are bad. This is what happens with surprises that you never know. So, but it's good
So
to be
after the pleasant
surprised.
surprise.
Yeah, yeah. But also having some sort of sure list that you can always get from there. It's
Yeah,
good. And also people who know you. I think that people who know you and they know what you are reading and they are readers, they can guess what are you gonna like. And so you can ask,
yeah,
I'm looking for something like this book that I read. What can you tell me,
yeah.
Um,
Similar authors, similar authors to authors that you've enjoyed reading, similar writing styles. Because yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think it has to be a bit of everything. Like even if you like, one genre in special, it's great. But I always think you need to sort of save a space for surprises because
Yeah,
otherwise it's like going to the same, bakery. I mean, it's great, but you know what you're gonna get. So
yeah,
just go for a
yeah. Being
walk.
open to something different. Yeah,
Yeah, open
yeah,
perspective, go for a walk, get into another baker and see what is it that they have that you haven't seen before. Um,
yeah.
so I think that with books is exactly the same thing. You
It
need
is.
to get out of what you're used to and just see
Yeah.
what's out there.
Absolutely. And sometimes you might read something and not enjoy it, but actually, if you listen to it on an audiobook, you might have a very different opinion. Because some people like being read to and they like connecting with the author's voice. And there's an emotional element that comes with audiobooks that's missing in the sort of paper
Mm.
book or the text.
And
So
and
try that. So, yeah.
and that's an interesting thought as well because I think that I don't, I mean, I think in English it's more common audiobooks. In Spanish, it's not that common. I think that this
Right.
is sort
Okay.
of getting there. Uh,
Yeah.
but now that we're all connected and we have like, earphones and headphones
AirPods.
and yeah, AirPods and the whole,
AirPods.
it's getting more common. And sometimes you're
Yeah.
cooking or you're doing some laundry and it's
It's
good
the
to
only
hear.
way to catch up on your reading.
Yeah, it's your reading time, and
Yeah.
and and one of
Yeah.
the things, I always recommend books to my clients because I feel that books are also part of this process of self-discovery,
Yeah.
and I think that they help. I work a lot with metaphors and even writing stories myself for my clients because I think there's something that you can always connect with a story, but
Absolutely.
trying to find the way to do that because sometimes a lot of people say they don't have time to read and
Yes.
you only have time for the things that you want to do. So if you
Yeah.
want to read, then you sort of need to hack your system to be able to do that.
And
And if
also, reading is a habit. If you're a holiday reader, you will not read, you will only read when you're on holiday. So if you want to incorporate it as part of your lifestyle, you've got to create a habit. Just like you would go to the gym or, it's got to be part of your daily routine or your weekly routine or something, before bedtime or on your, people don't go on commutes anymore because of the pandemic, but taking a break over lunch or break over breakfast.
yeah, you need to
Even
find
if
your
it's 15
book
minutes.
time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And build it in as a habit.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that it's a time for meditation in a way. It's a time for you.
It is.
It's
It is. It's self-care.
it's self-care for real. And I recommend it for different reasons. I think that you are getting something out of it by reading and seeing the content. But it's not only about the content. It's this break moment that you're getting from that you are stepping outside whatever is worrying you. You're stepping outside
Yeah.
whatever is on your mind, and you're putting all your energy and all your attention into something else. And when you come
Yeah.
back to your problem it's gonna follow you all day, then probably you have a more refreshing perspective about it. And maybe the book even helped you solve it. So why not? Because it might be that you're getting the solution in those pages.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, the coping strategies littered all over. So, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and sometimes you get you get random ideas, you get light bulb moments in the most unexpected of places, and you'll often find that when you're reading as well. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's worth a
definitely.
shot.
So, to wrap up, would you like to share just a golden nugget, something that you want to share as a message in regards of books?
I would say, incorporate bibliotherapy as part of your daily reading routine. So don't just, I mean, you can definitely read for fun and for escapism, but maybe look at reading from a different perspective and see what it can offer you from a personal growth angle, because you'll be surprised at how much you could possibly get out of it, and how refreshing it might be for you. So yeah, that would be my golden tip.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think reading is such an empathic activity with very low risk, because
Yeah,
there's nobody there to answer you really. So I think that you can practice empathy by empathizing with the characters and getting into the story and thinking it through and really trying to get it from all perspective, from a feeling perspective, from imagining the situation. And the fact that it's low risk, it means that you are practicing an ability, you are practicing something that's inherently
yeah,
human, and that we sometimes forget that it's part of it because we're so worried about other things that we just don't listen. So I think that if we would take some of that attention that we put into reading and we can transfer that into the real world when we're out of those pages and we are talking to someone and we're taking the same attention that we would pay the book, the same attention we would pay to that person, I think that
yeah,
our connections would be more authentic and more real. And what's better than that? I think that we all want to have authentic relationships, and empathy is the key for that, for being authentic to
it is.
ourselves and holding
It
the
is.
space for others to be that too. So
Yeah. And reading is a really great way of developing empathy. And this is why, it's so important for children, because that's where they develop empathy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, reading at all ages. So
Yeah.
thank
You might
thank
find
you.
my Raising Reader and Storyteller podcast helpful for children, for raising readers.
Yeah, no, I'm writing now a book on empathy for children. So I think that's so important that they get to read, but they get to read about how to empathize, how to truly do the process and understand how to get into someone's shoes. So that's
Yeah.
uh that's great. It was a great pleasure talking to you. I had so
Yeah,
much fun.
it
Um
was so lovely.
yeah.
We should do this again soon.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So thank you for this lovely chat, and I'm sure we'll talk very soon.
No, thank you, Meritxell, and I look forward to talking more books on and offline.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Take
Bye,
care.
guys.
Night.